Have you ever worked with a contractor that just absolutely wasted your time and your money? Well, I'm going to talk about my experience that I've had with my contractor in getting my store built, and just kind of everything that's led up to the point where I'm at now. So I signed my lease in early November, and immediately paid first month's rent deposit, got the keys, met with the contractor, gave him the first payment to start the work. The agreed upon price that he told me was $30,000. And this was after some back and forth, wanted to do things within a certain budget. So, like I said, gave him the first payment. He started the work probably a week after I gave him the first payment. And at first, things were progressing quickly. And I was happy about that because the space that I chose had previously been another business, but it was basically just drywall with a bare concrete floor. So really everything that needed to be done was remodeling the bathroom, which meant adding a new toilet and a vanity, flooring and painting, as well as flooring for the entire 1,500 square foot lease space and painting all the walls, with the addition of adding a divider wall to separate the front retail area from the back work area. And so, paint got done, flooring went in, they did the leveling concrete first, put the flooring down, and at that point I was like, okay, great, now I can start moving furniture in and everything, and the framing was up for the wall. That was one of the very first things that they did. So really the only thing that was missing was the drywall because the bathroom had been completed. Everything seemed like it was moving forward. So kind of just, everything was going good. I didn't have any complaints. I was happy with the speed of everything. And, then me having a real estate background, I knew where to go to look to see if the permit had been requested, because there had been some time that had passed, and he kept saying if the city cooperates and if they're able to get this permit approved quickly, then we can move forward with putting up your drywall, because we need a permit to do that. They have to come out and inspect the wall framing and make sure everything's good to go before we can put up the drywall. So I was like, okay, no problem. And like I said, went to the permitting database online, searched my address and suite number, and realized that there was no permit that had been requested. So, reached out to the contractor about that, and that is when he informed me that he had not submitted the permit because the permitting process in Dallas was way more detailed than he was used to, and he wanted to make sure that he was submitting everything correctly so that they didn't throw anything back and we could move forward, as planned pretty quickly, which, I said, sure, fine, understandable, that's what I would want to do too. So gave him the benefit of the doubt. A couple more weeks went by, still nothing, was kind of on his ass about getting the permit at least requested. So finally he submitted it, right? And he submitted it to a department that expedited permits. And I was like, okay, great. I don't have much working knowledge of the different departments and how permits work and everything. Him being a contractor, I just thought, hey, you're going to know what you're doing and you've got this and I'll let you handle it. So a whole entire 30 days went by and no one had looked at the permit. It had not gone into an in-review status, nothing. So at that point I was, obviously frustrated, and I reached out to him and I said, hey, this is getting kind of ridiculous. This shouldn't be taking this long. I've had experience with getting permits for other jobs, in real estate, and this is not adding up. Like, something is wrong. So, of course he called and asked questions, and kind of they, gave him the runaround, and everybody was giving him a different answer. So at this point I realized, like, he didn't know what he was doing, and this was going to be, this was going to take a lot longer than originally planned. So he ended up submitting the permit to the wrong department. And that expedited department that he submitted to was for larger jobs, which, mine's a very small remodel job, right? So we just painted floors, bathroom, wall, done. Like, it should have only taken a few weeks to get everything finished. It wasn't large, so they said, this is not the department you should be submitting this to, so you're going to have to back out your permit, and you're going to have to resubmit everything. And for some context, this was only after I had reached out personally to the permitting office and gotten the name and the email address of someone in the expedited permitting team, and then copied my contractor on the email to that person that worked at the city. So it took me personally going through city employees, and emailing them to find out, hey, this is the wrong department and we need to resubmit. So I was obviously frustrated about that and thought, wow, this is going to take forever. So, got it all resubmitted and everything. Was kind of hopeful that it would move forward quickly just based on the circumstance, but was a little naive to think that, because then I realized that just because he resubmitted everything didn't mean that he knew what he was doing. So the permitting process in Dallas is super detailed, and they have to have everything a certain way, or they're going to continue to kick back and give you correction tasks on things to fix and re-upload. And it was just kind of a nightmare, from just like uploading documents from that standpoint. Like, he couldn't get it done. So, I obviously made a huge deal to him about it, and I said, this is getting ridiculous. Like, you've been trying to upload documents for 2 weeks now, and you still can't seem to figure out, what it is that they're wanting from you to upload it correctly. So at that point, he decided that he was going to reach out to a permit expediting company that had been emailing him, I guess when he registered to do contracting work with the city of Dallas. So, I was like, man, like, if you took this job knowing that you had no prior knowledge of the permitting process in Dallas, and you decided, hey, like, I want this money from this project, I'm going to go ahead and take this even though I haven't ever worked in Dallas, and I'm going to figure it out, which I can understand, right? Like, nobody wants to pass up a good opportunity, but, after a whole month of messing around with a permit and not knowing what you're doing, that should have been a good indication that you should have reached out to someone for help. It should have never gotten to the point where I was, so frustrated with you and had several phone calls and had to feel like I was, your boss on your ass about getting this done for me, because I'm supposed to be, building my store and ordering supplies and coordinating things and not having to deal with any of this stuff, right? Like, this is your job. So finally, we got in contact with the expediting company, and since then things have been moving smoothly. One other big holdup was that he didn't ever submit my certificate of occupancy application correctly, so they were never able to move it from a new status to an in review status, which is causing the sign company that's going to install my sign on the outside of the building to not be able to move forward, because for them to move forward, it has to be in an in review status, and it's not. It's still in a new status. So that has been frustrating, because that should have been put up a long time ago. And UPS and FedEx, they want photos of your storefront with signage. So that's kind of been on hold, and I've been kind of like, saying, okay, yes, like, I'll be ready to start at this date, and I've kept having to push that date back, and it's just been a little bit of, a nightmare, for lack of a better word. I mean, that is probably the best word to describe what's been happening. So, if I've learned anything, it's just do your research on your contractors, vet them, make sure that they know what they're doing and that they've worked in the city that you're in and they have a good understanding of the permitting process in your city, because if they don't, then you're going to be in for some trouble. You know, I'm now 2 months behind opening this store, which is very unfortunate because, you know, I'm going to have to pay rent on a store that I can't profit on because I don't have a certificate of occupancy, and I need that to be able to serve the public. So, you know, not the most ideal situation ever, but learning experience for me. Definitely won't make this mistake again if I decide to open up another store. But just wanted to share that experience. If you ever have had an experience with a contractor that was a bit of a nightmare, please leave it in the comments. Let's talk about it. You know, it's never ideal when starting out a new business to be in a situation where your hands are tied and you're at someone else's mercy for something like this. But it's definitely given me more time to prep and make sure my store is just perfect in the way that I want it when I open my doors. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.